Okay, you are now live.
Good morning. I'm going to call a meeting to order. This is a virtual hearing for administrative adjustment ADJ 2021-009, an application for a fence height adjustment at Eastport Elementary School. It's a hearing before the Department of Planning and Zoning. This is Thursday, April 15th, 2021. The meeting is called to order at 10:03 a.m. Mr. City Attorney, would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
The only item on our agenda is this review of the fence permit.
Thank you, sir. For the record, I am Thomas Smith. I'm the Chief of Current Planning for the City of Annapolis Department of Planning and Zoning, and I'll be chairing this hearing this morning. To reiterate, this is a virtual hearing to hear the objection filed by Jim Conlon to receive public comment and testimony into the record. Mr. Conlon objects to the application of the Board of Appeals for Anne Arundel County's 425th Street. The location is Eastport Elementary School. The Board of Education has filed for approval of a fence height of 6 feet, the administrative adjustment application. Code sections for administrative adjustment, 21.18 of the City Code with specific criteria related to 21.18.040 A through D, and also 2160.070 J3 A and B, allowing additional height to fences. These are the standards by which the Planning Department will consider the application, along with written public and oral testimony before rendering any decision. Other code sections are applicable once the fence permit has been filed. This hearing this morning is governed by City Code 2118.020 C3 with references and incorporates 2110.020 B, which is notice to nearby property owners, and 2110.020 C, which is notice of the formal public hearing posted on site and in a newspaper. I believe Ms. Hook has already labeled these as exhibits C1 and C2. As chair this morning, I've put together an agenda and I hope we can stick to, and this meeting will run smoothly, allowing myself 5 minutes for those introductory remarks. I'm going to allow 10 minutes for staff to give a presentation, describe the administrative adjustment in the process. I'm going to allow the applicant 10 minutes to explain their application and how they feel it meets the criteria 2118. I'm going to give Mr. Conlon 20 minutes to present his objection. After those presentations, I will receive public testimony. Just so everyone is aware, this public testimony will be held open until 4:30 p.m. on April 22nd, 2021, and comments will be emailed to Cynthia Gudenius, and we're going to display her email address later. Oh, actually, Julian pulled it up for me now. We're going to display that again later so everyone knows to send any further public comment to Ms. Gudenius's email address. All right, so as chair, I will call Ms. Gudenius of staff for a presentation.
Hi, thanks, Tom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cynthia Gudenius. I'm a planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning in the Current Planning Division. As Tom noted, this is case number ADJ 2021-009. It was submitted to the Department of Planning and Zoning and became a formal case within our system on March 16th of 2021. The property is owned by the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. It's located at 425th Street, the Eastport Elementary School. That property is zoned R2NC, Single Family Residence Neighborhood Conservation District. It is also in the critical area with the designation of IDA, intensely developed areas. The applicant is requesting an administrative adjustment to allow for a 6-foot fence height per code section 21C.070I. The maximum height allowed along a public street in the R2NC district is 4 feet. Code section 2160.070J2 allows for up to an additional 4 feet of height through the administrative application process and review criteria 2118, along with additional criteria of Code Section 21.60.070 J3A and B. The property was originally posted with public notice signs for the administrative adjustment application. We did receive an objection to the application, which then results in a public hearing for the application per Code Section 21.18020 C3. As such, the property was then posted with public hearing signs. An advertisement was made in the Capitol newspaper, and notice was mailed to the surrounding property owners within 200 feet of the subject property as required. There have been close to 70 public comments that have been received to date, 3 in opposition, 1 was just a comment, and the remaining are in support of the project. And at that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Udinius. I will now hear from the applicant for a presentation.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Kyle Roof, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. With me today are the following witnesses: Susan Gallagher, Principal of Eastport Elementary School; Jessica Packler, President of Eastport PTA; Nellie Garrity, Eastport Play Eastport Chair; Emily Tomasini, Play Eastport Co-Chair; and Chris Garrity, Treasurer of Eastport PTA. The following prepared remarks have been provided in writing to the City of Annapolis Department of Planning and Zoning. We are requesting approval of Administrative Adjustment ADJ 2021-009 pursuant to City Code Section 2118-040 to construct a replacement 6-foot fence on an R2 NC parcel located at 420 5th Street, Annapolis, Maryland. The request is directly related to the Eastport Elementary School fencing, landscape, and signage improvements third-party project sponsored by Eastport Elementary School PTA. The project was presented and approved by the Board of Education on October 7th, 2020. The subject property consists of approximately 3 acres and houses Eastport Elementary School and its associated play areas. The proposed 6-foot ornamental fence will replace the current 6-foot chain link fence that encloses the play areas adjacent to 5th, Severn Avenue, and 6th Streets. To meet the requirements of City Code, AACPS submitted an administrative adjustment application on March 8th, 2021. The application included 21 pages of detailed information and drawings related to the proposed fence replacement project. In addition, AACPS provided written responses to the practical difficulties, unique conditions, public safety, and transportation plan requirements noted in the application. Following the submission of the application and posting the administrative hearing signs, the City of Annapolis Department of Planning and Zoning notified Anne Arundel County Public Schools that at least 2 objections to the administrative adjustment were submitted. The basis of the first objection was not germane to the administrative adjustment fence height request. Rather, it focused on the placement of the fence within the public right-of-way. With that being said, I would like to convey to this panel that AACPS did seek and received approval to construct the replacement fence within the right-of-way. On February 19th, 2021, pursuant to City Code 1732-0101.2, AACPS sent a formal letter to the city's Director of Public Works requesting approval to construct a replacement fence within the right-of-way. This letter included a detailed drawing noting the approximate location adjacent to the existing sidewalk and 5th Street. Approval by the Director of Public Works was received through email on March 4th, 2021. The second objection focused on the height of the fence and referenced student safety and security. I will not go into the specifics noted in that objection, but I will convey to this panel that construction of the play area fence higher than 4 feet is not uncharacteristic for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Most recently, Richard Henry Lee in Glen Burnie, Maryland was reconstructed on a 4.5 acre parcel. As part of this effort, a 6-foot fence was constructed along the edge of the grass play area and adjacent to the public right-of-way. As with Eastport, R.H. Lee is in an urban setting with play areas located adjacent to busy local and collector streets. The taller fence height assists in the management and supervision of school children using the play areas by providing an adequate height to prevent errant play equipment or items from leaving the school grounds, preventing the children from inadvertently entering the streets, and allowing visibility to monitor activity outside and adjacent to the school grounds. Similar street playground separation fences adjacent to public right-of-way can be found within the city of Annapolis at West Annapolis Elementary School and Annapolis Elementary School. To address the student safety and security aspect of the fence, the proposed project was discussed with AACPS's school security department, and no objections were voiced to the replacement of the 6-foot fence with another 6-foot fence. It is our understanding that the reason behind most fence height zoning requirements along public streets in residential neighborhoods are visibility and appearance. For Eastport Elementary School, visibility will not be an issue due to the type of fence being proposed. Like the existing chain link fence, the proposed fence is not intended to be used as a privacy screening fence. The proposed fence will be similar in appearance to the 4-foot fence constructed this past winter and consists of pickets spaced approximately 4 inches. Like the existing chain link fence, the pickets will allow ample visibility to and from the play areas. This visibility will help with the supervision and management of children and allow for the visibility to and from the street. As for the appearance of the fence, the existing fence is located adjacent to the public right-of-way and is 6 feet tall. We are proposing a 6-foot fence in roughly the same location. Therefore, the proposed fence will not create a noticeable change in the community's line of sight while using the sidewalk or street. The proposed ornamental fence also provides an aesthetic upgrade when compared to the existing chain link fence. Given the explanations provided today and the information presented in the administrative adjustment application, I believe ample justification to the approval of this variance has been provided. We appreciate the panel taking the time to hear from us and look forward to your decision. Thank you.
Mr. Ruff, do you have any other witnesses that wish to testify?
Not at this time.
Very good. Good. Thank you for your presentation, sir. Now I will hear from Mr. Conlon. Mr. Conlon, you submitted a 20-page document outlining your objection to the application, which we have entered into the record as Exhibit P5. Do you wish us to rely upon this document, or are you going to make an additional presentation today?
Mr. Conlon, you're muted.
Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
Mr. Conlon,
thank you very much. Yes,
floor is
thank you for the
yours.
opportunity to speak today. No, I'm not going to read the document or summarize it. I believe you've all had an opportunity to read it. I've provided sufficient time. And I'd like to thank the applicant for putting your statements in writing as well. It clarifies our positions on the issues, and it's greatly appreciated. I do have 3 other comments, though, if I may,
All right.
based on the presentation of the applicant. The applicant mentions the fact that the approval was given by the Public Works. That is not a final decision. That is part of the process. The applicant submits an application. One of the steps in the process is that the Public Works must review and approve or stamp off. The final decision is with the Director of Planning and Zoning. The second item is a 6-foot fence may not be unusual. Yes, I'm sure there are 6-foot fences out there. I believe there's 125 different schools in Anne Arundel County school system. However, there is no documented requirement or any requirement I'm aware of for a 6-foot fence for any of the schools within Anne Arundel County. If I'm wrong, I believe that was a statement made by the Chief Operating Officer during their meeting with the Board of Education. And secondly, and thirdly, safety, yes, I'm definitely concerned about safety. Throughout my whole life, safety always came first, no matter what environment you're in. The safety of the children, yes, that is the key element here. And I understand sometimes the means may justify the ends, or the end justifies the means, whatever way you want to phrase that. But in this particular case, which is not in my document, but we talk about safety, and the applicant does too, is I'm not sure, and I can't find anywhere where this type of fence is much safer than a mesh fence that is typically used within Anne Arundel County school system in any athletic field. This fence that is being proposed has gaps in it, is very structurally sound so that when you hit it or run into it, it does not give. It has whole 4-inch gappings in it where someone can put their hand through it, their leg through it, and not be able to get out, or run and the leg gets caught into it. Mesh fence seems to be the standard for school systems, for athletic fields, recreational areas. But in this particular case, it's not. And that's very interesting, is that we talk about safety, but it appears to be more a aesthetic issue, which contradicts the need for safety of our children. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than willing to answer anyone's questions, but that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon, very much for that testimony. I'll now hear from the public. To date, we have received, I believe, 67 letters from members of the public, which we have labeled exhibits 1 through 67-T1. I believe there was one witness who was signed up who'd like to present public testimony. That is Miss Denise Robinson. Good morning, Miss Robinson.
Good morning. How are you all doing? I apologize in advance because I'm not as prepared as I would like to be, because I have spent the past 4 days at the emergency room with my mother with cardiac issues. She's now in the hospital. So what you're seeing now is probably the most important thing you will see, because the most important issue I'm going to bring up here is concussions. And the problem I'm dealing with now, the reason I can't focus is because my brain, when it is tired, when it is exhausted, can't function. Right now, the pain level in my brain is about a 7 out of a 10. And that is because of childhood concussions. That is nothing else. And what you have not addressed, I will go through, forgive me, I'll try to go back in order here. You have not addressed the safety protocol of this fence as it pertains to childhood concussions and recreational fences. Much of the education I was given was by the Board of Education. So the fact that they are promoting a wrought iron aluminum fence with posts 4 inches apart on a recreational field, I find apprehensible. If you go to their website, if you go to any coach's website, any athletic field's website, what is number one is concussion protocol, return to play, concussion awareness, the flow chart of concussions, and they are ignoring it on this field. This has been promoted, you will see, with the State Bond Initiative by Sarah Efron as recreational fields, baseball fields. So that is your most important. Now I'm going to try to go back and focus. And like I said, I apologize because my brain is shutting down. And you will see what I typed last night that I sent. I mentioned before, because of my background, I have been a coach since 1996. I was forced to retire in 2015 because of a concussion. I was told by my neurologist I had to retire because if I took one more hit, no matter how slight, I could be out cold. I could have irreparable damage. I may not wake up. I could not put that on a child because as a coach, I coached cheer at Chesapeake and Arundel High School. I caught children. That was my job. I made sure they stayed safe. So many times I took the hit, so they did not. And I could not put on my child, my athletes, to see me as a coach black out and have an ambulance called, because I know what it is like as a coach to have that happen and have the sports trainer or an ambulance call. And that's one thing you have to remember. Now I'll touch briefly on the when I brought the active shooter situation, and what you need to look at are the numbers. That I think we've had over 130 this year alone. We've had 130 mass shootings Over 500 people have been killed since the beginning of the year. Gun violence is not going down. It's not. There have been numerous, if you Google, do research on newspapers, schoolyard playground shootings, you will be astonished by the number of shootings that happen at a playground. It is imperative, and what the school board has not done is come up with a safe fence and a protocol for when students are outside. I know as a coach at Chesapeake and Arundel, in the 10 years I coached as the Board of Education, not once were we as coaches sat down and told, here's the protocol if there is an active shooter in your field. Not once. They have protocols inside the school. Schools can lock down. They have those protocols. They practice them. Not once do they do it for your outside playgrounds or athletic fields. The problem and the danger does not stop at 2 o'clock. It does not stop at recess. Nothing stops. We're in a world, unfortunately, that we have to protect our children against this. And when you look at a 6-foot vertical fence, there is no way a kid can get out of it. You have, under these new plans, you have removed the safety fence on 5th Street. That was one of your access points. So now if the kids want to come back, they have to go back towards the school, which could be where the danger is, or run the total length of the field. That total, I don't know about you, but I would not want to run the total length of the field as a child in danger. It could be from a shooting, it can be from fire, it can be from a number of things. As the school board, as the city, as a parent, as a coach, you are, and we must take seriously the safety of our kids on the playground. We must dedicate all the time to every scenario, not the normal, but the abnormal. And unfortunately, the abnormal is becoming normal. Sorry, like I said, my brain is all over the place. One of the shootings, if I remember correct, in Las Vegas, where you had the shooting within the field, in 10 minutes, he killed 60 people. 60 people, and they were trapped within a fence. They couldn't get out. That is documented by the FBI, the Las Vegas Police Department. If you want, I can put you in touch with the people who did the study scenario afterwards. They will tell you the danger that those fences incurred on the public at these concerts. Oh, what else do we have? Okay, now, sorry, you can read. I'm not going to go into it. I put it all in there. If you have any questions, if you want me to put in touch with some of the experts I know through my father, I will gladly do that. They have people who specialize in that. In fact, I offered it to the people in charge of Play Annapolis and they turned it down. And I keep wondering, why is there such an objection to having the police and the fire department look at the possibility, the necessity of adding a gate? It's a gate. As you'll see in my one email, what's worth more, a child's life or the cost of a gate? It's kind of interesting. And you also must note that this 6-foot vertical fencing in the Southern California shooting, they couldn't get to the victims because somebody had padlocked the gate and the police had to wait for bolt cutters to come in. I can send you the documents on that as well. You have right now, if I walk down on 5th Street, both your exit gates are padlocked. And probably how quick can a person with the key get there? That's another thing you have to look at. So if you padlock a vertical fence, they can't climb, they can't get out, they're stuck. Now, I received this thing last night. Wow, I read the thing last night from documents from the PTA and the board of thingies. And if you see in what I sent this morning, I was at Baltimore, Washington. So I was right near the schools that you mentioned. You'll see in the thing I talked to you, the Richard Henry Lee Elementary School. I don't know if you can see it. The fence around the playground next to the busy street, 1 block from Crane Highway, is 4 foot. It is not 6 foot. The 6-foot fence extends along the parking lot in the back across one where there's a drainage ditch. So I understand 6-foot fence there. But when they say there's a 6-foot fence, there's your fence. You'll see in the picture, it's 4 foot. When they talk about West Annapolis, in fact, West Annapolis gives you what I know, because since I coached in recreation and with the school board, I have been to your fields. I have been to every high school. I have been to every rec league. I've been to them all as a coach and as a parent because my kid was an athlete. But in West Annapolis, which is horrible on here, if you go visit West Annapolis, the playground is in a 4-foot fence next to a 4-foot fence next to the street. It's not 6 foot. The 6-foot fence, if you go to my diagram, which I said, took a photograph for you last night on my way home, 6 foot, which is on Melvin Avenue, which is the busiest street next to West Annapolis. There's a 6-foot section of fence, but it is not the entire length of the fence. I mean, the playground. It only goes half of it. Your field there, you can go look, it's half. They have done at West Annapolis what you will find at Piney Orchard, at Odenton, at most schools that are against a busy fence. They do a 4 foot along the playground, and then they do a 6 foot section along the busiest corridor. You will find that. I can take pictures. I'd be happy to send them to you from the elementary schools. The other beauty of coaching cheerleading is, my daughter added it up. Over the course of my career, I have coached 838 students, kids, athletes. That's the span from my rec to that. Out that in my wheelhouse, which people say I need to get out of my wheelhouse because I have nothing to do with this school. In my wheelhouse, I have teachers. The number 1 and 2 professions of my athletes, teachers and nurses. And my kids teach at all over the place. Let me see. Oh, right here, Richard Henry, how I knew there was a 4 foot, why she told me to come take a picture of it. My teachers are at Broadneck. My kids, I have them all over. I can send you a list of where they're at. Every single one of my kids can tell you what's going on in the playground. And what they find most astonishing is the fact that apparently in Eastport, they seem to be the only people who can't control their children within a 4 foot fence. They're like, how can we have Ridgeway Elementary School sits on Route 170. The speed limit on 170 is 50 miles per hour. Yet their teachers can control their students and keep them within the boundaries. Crofton Elementary School sits on 450. The speed limit is 45 miles an hour. Yet they're fine with their fence. A fence is not meant to be ornamental. It doesn't need to look pretty. It shouldn't look pretty, obviously. It should be safe. I don't care what it looks. I don't care if it's purple. I don't care if it's green. I don't care if it's the god ugliest fence you've ever seen. The number 1 objective of that fence is to be safe. So there are doubts, and according to the Board of Education, the safest fence you're going to see around a school is a chain link. And it's going to be 4 foot, by the way. Now, we're going to go on to what I know firsthand, concussion and fences. According to the CDC, there's 20,000 concussions in recreation fields and playgrounds. 75% of those concussions actually happen on recreation fields or kids playing sports within the confines of an elementary school. We know now from studies, the younger a child is when they have a concussion, the more likely they will sustain lifelong brain damage. They will have an increased chance of Parkinson's disease, dementia, and CTE. The more concussions a child sustains between the ages of 6 and 17, the more likely they will suffer dementia. The risk of getting dementia is increased by 82%. Let that hit you, 82%. So what you do on that field has implications 50 years down the road. So it doesn't matter if you have 60 people writing letters of support. What matters is that fence is the fence that will keep that child safe from the time they enter in 6 years old till the day they die. Because you only have one brain and we have to keep the brain healthy. When I taught, I have over certifications. I have taught concussion safety. I have taught gym safety. I have taught safety within sports up and down the East Coast, Delaware Coaches Conference, Newark Safety Conference. What I have taught, it's that we can't prevent all injuries. We just can't do it, but it's imperative that we place precautions and have the best equipment and the best knowledge and the best trained coaches and playground monitors that we can lessen the number of injuries and the severity of injuries. Now, I'm going to take you to, I also submitted the Bond Initiative Act. I think there was some confusion because I think people think of this as a playground. It is not a playground. If you look at what I've attached, the 2020 Bond Initiative by Senator Sarah Efron and Delegate Kane, you will see that numerous times throughout this document, they mention it's a recreation field. Currently, the field, according to them on section 16, the number of the playground is served is 500. The proposed number of people they want to serve is 1,250. That means 1,250 people, including children, are going to enter your field per year. You are now responsible to make sure those 1,250 people are the safest they can possibly be. Now, I'm trying to think. When you have a typically, if you go through every recreation field, the standard There's no quote unquote written standard, but there is a practice standard around recreation fields. All you have to do is look at Truxton Park, Pip Maury, if you want to know Annapolis' standard. It is a 4-foot fence with the yellow tubing safety netting with caps on the fence counts and a mesh up above it to prevent falls. You see that at every recreation field in the county. 4-foot fence. If you go, when you put in a 4-inch, so let me just explain it in common sense, easy terms here. On a typical chain link fence, there is a post, the most dangerous item you have, typically every 8 to 10 feet. There's those 2 posts. When you insert a wrought iron 4-inch post, now instead of 2 posts, which have the most danger for your brain, we have now inserted 28 to 30 vertical posts, which means when that kid hits the brain, they have 28 more times likely to hit a metal post that will not forgive your brain. You only have one brain. And it doesn't have to be a hard hit. It can be a minor hit that does lifelong damage. So would you want your kid hitting a post every 4 inches? In fact, the average width of your kid, we calculated that if a kid hits that fence, they're hitting 6 rungs, 6 posts, 6 posts. Think about that, 6, which is why you do not see this fence as a border of an athletic field. You will see it as a border around, a ticket booth, the actual complex, but you do not see it around the playing field because sports trainers, coaches, everybody that matters know this is not a safe fence for your brain. Okay, let me see what else. Now, if you look, I'm going to bring some other things to your attention because my wheelhouse has always been safety. And I've always been able to, unfortunately, my brain has been able to see things and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I walked the fence. I walked your playground. Why there's a baseball field in there? I don't know. If you look at the drawings they submitted, your third base foul line leads to a point. It leads to a point. Now, how many of you been to a game and watched those kids run for a foul ball? They don't stop and go, oh, it's foul. I'm not going to try to catch it. In baseball, they play that ball in and out of the boundaries. Baseball is the only sport where the goal is to hit it out of the park. There is no keeping it in the boundaries. They hit it out of the park. So we now have elementary school kids running towards a fence, a point. Since you're inviting the public in, you're not going to have elementary schools because someone's going to say, well, they can't hit it that far. Yeah, but what about the middle schoolers who come in? What about the high schoolers that come into play on that field? Am I the only one who hasn't seen somebody run into a fence? We've all seen it. I've seen it in person. It is not fun. Now, they also talked about over and over, they talked about the safety of this outdoor field. In the field, they're moving the basketball court, so it's not in the field, but they're installing a soccer field. And what's interesting, if you look at their drawings, the soccer field borders on a path. Soccer is also the one thing about cheer is you get to go to soccer, football. We cheer it all. So we're there on the sidelines. We see what happens. Soccer is interesting because, again, they play out of bounds. Because the ball is not considered out of bounds on the boundary, the portion of the ball can go out of bounds, but they'll kick it back in bounds because the entire ball has to go out of bounds. So you will constantly see players run up and down that boundary line, keeping the ball in. You will see them head it back in. You will see them dive to keep it back in. So you have now put the boundary of a soccer field on a path. I'm not sure if it's cement. I'm not sure if it's chip. I'm not sure what it is. But at boundary, if you look at their drawing, it's on a path. And if you look at the U.S. Soccer Federation, they require 6 foot of grass around a playing field. That's a standard by the U.S. Youth Soccer Association. Now, sorry, I'm bouncing around here. It's also important to note that if you look at, which I've included your standards of your baseball fields, because you're putting a baseball field in there, the entire complex, according to their program, is 3 acres. What portion of that is dedicated to the fields? Because from Babe Ruth guidelines, for children playing from the ages of 4 to 12, they require 1.25 acres dedicated solely to fields as safety. 1.25 acres. If you were having children play over the age of 12, they require 3.25 acres. These aren't my standards. These are from the documents I've sent you. National Little League requires a 4-foot fence on the outfield. They don't say 6 foot, they say 4 foot. Every time when you look at the requirements for a recreational playing field for baseball and any other kind of sports, they will say 4-foot, fully capped fence post, yellow PVC piping or sponge coating on the top. That is the requirement set by national federations. So Anne Arundel County may not have one, the school board might not have one, but nationally there is one. And if you go around the fields, you will see we follow it. Every playing field follows it.
Ms. Robinson, how much longer can we wrap up, perhaps?
I was gonna say, yeah, that's fine. I was gonna
Another
say.
minute or two?
Yeah, so,
Thank
I mean, in their concussion, I have sports trainers who will be submitting to you because the beauty of my job, unfortunately, I wanted to contact them sooner. You will be hearing from sports trainers across the United States about this fence because I've worked with them. I have run sporting events where I was responsible for over 3,000 athletes, 300 coaches, and 5,000 spectators. I work closely with sports trainers to keep my event safe. And when you plan a recreation field, when you plan a playground, you should be talking to these sports trainers because they're the ones who deal with concussions and other injuries. You have that duty. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that they want to remove they want to redo the signage by Memorial Park. People can tell you in Annapolis, for the past several years, I've been researching the men and women who served in World War II. That field, the dedication of the park, which they said is unkept, is definitely kept. It's been kept by volunteers since 1951. The field was given to and dedicated to the VFW and the Eastport Democratic Club and the Eastport Civic Association. It was dedicated in 1951 on Memorial Day and dedicated to the men and women who served in World War II and World War I. To date, 88 men died in World War II from Annapolis. We have Medal of Honor winners. We have Silver Stars. We have 2 sons of mayors, a grandson of a mayor. We have a state senator. We have so many. We have Everyday Joe. We have streets named after him. Yet here we are, and they want to remove the memorial to these men. I mean, think about it. These aren't Confederates. These are men in World War II. These are men who freed Dachau, who freed Auschwitz. I mean, I've listened to the survivor stories. You are going to remove the memorial that was dedicated to these men. At the memorial, when it was dedicated, was Isaac Windsor. Isaac Windsor's son, Donald Duke Windsor, was killed in action. He was a pilot with the Army Air Corps. He died serving, protecting our freedom. We have a street named after him. Also, there is Singleton. His nephew was awarded 5 Bronze Stars for bravery, fighting in the Philippines, Luzerne, and the Pacific. He was killed in action. You're removing that monument that was dedicated to him. Can you think of the outrage that would happen if people found out? It's one thing. These aren't, like I said, they're not Confederates. These are our men. These are our heroes. We had over 1,200 men from Annapolis serve in World War II. 1,200. We had the Annapolis Yacht Yard down there who built PT boats for the British and Russian Navy, for the Coast Guard. We have so much service, and what I'd love to see included and added eventually on to this memorial is for the merchant mariners, who most of them were African American, who, by the way, are not listed on any roll of honor at any national memorial. You can't find them in Arlington. You won't find them on the rolls of the missing because they were merchant mariners. It took until 1998 until the United States government recognized them as the official 5th service.
Ms. Robinson, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. Can we wrap up shortly?
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, if you want, there's a lot more to this and you need to talk to it. If you're going to allow them to build this signage, then tell them to delay it until we can find an appropriate place to move the monuments that were dedicated to the men who served and died for our country. Very simple. It's not much to ask. I mean, there's a lot to think of, but tell you what, it's not just a fence. It's somebody's life. It's somebody's safety. So.
Thank you. Wow, that's a great deal of information. I think we've all learned a great deal. I'm going to give an opportunity because of everything that's been presented for a rebuttal from each one. I'm going to do that in reverse order. Just a minute or so. Mr. Conlon, would you have anything you'd like to add?
You're on mute. No, Conlon's on mute. Yeah.
Mr. Conlon?
Thank you for the opportunity, but I have no additional comments.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Ruff? Anything you'd like to?
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Conlon and Ms. Robinson's taking the time out of their day to provide their testimony, but I found it, some of the remarks from Ms. Robinson irrelevant to the actual administrative adjustment for the height. And I hope that this panel takes that into consideration, that we're really just looking at the height of the fence at this time.
Yes, sir. Ms. Gudenius, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I have nothing to add, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. So, as chair,
I think Mr. Conlon showing it to your attention.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Conlon, did you have something further, sir? You're on mute again, sir. Mr. Conlon, you're still on mute, sir.
Yes, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, sir, please proceed.
Yes, the applicant makes a very good point. Yes, there's two avenues to address this. One, through this process here, where it may go to the Board of Appeals, or address these issues when we go to the building permit phase. One would actually think that we actually get two bites out of the apple because of this scenario. One is that we can address the issues now and deal with it in the Board of Appeals process, or deal with it during the building permit issuing process and go to the Building Board of Appeals. So in this particular case, there's two avenues. Actually, they can be addressed in both avenues. And I hope the city and the Director of Planning and Zoning, which oversees both, will allow this process to move forward so we don't have to address it again within the Building Board of Appeals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon, for that very much. There's nothing further. All right. I think this then brings our hearing to a close. As the chair, I am charged with creating a public record, noting Mr. Conlon's objections, and I'm going to report and make a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Director with all the testimony, both written and oral, that we have received to date. Once more, I'm going to thank you, Julie, for posting that. Public testimony, it would be held open until 4:30 p.m. on April 22nd, 2021, with that public comment testimony emailed to Cynthia Gudenius, and you see Cynthia's email address there, ejuedenius@annapolis.gov. This hearing on administrative adjustment ADJ 2021-009 is now closed. Mr. City Attorney, next item on the agenda.
This agenda is now complete, sir.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. This hearing is now complete and closed, and I thank everyone who took their time this morning to provide testimony. And we will have a decision looking to around May the 7th, if not sooner.